Hello and welcome to this training video about how to exit someone from a housing project.
Hey Fred, really quick, you might want to expand your, I can see like your icons on the side and on the bottom.
Oh gosh, I'm doing the,
Okay.
okay, yeah, yep.
Okay.
All right,
Like,
thanks for
I don't know
catching
if
that.
people want to see that.
I
Okay.
don't have anything, I don't know.
No, it's fine. I was just like, yeah, okay.
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 It's better though. Hello and welcome to this video about exiting clients from client point projects in Service Point. So again, the only types of projects that are going to do exits in client point are going to be rapid rehousing projects like the one we're using as an example right now. Homelessness prevention projects are going to use client point. Street outreach is going to use client point, as well as other services only projects like PATH or other case management projects. If you're an emergency shelter or permanent supportive housing, you should be using shelter point. So we're going to we also have a video about exiting people from shelter point. I suggest you watch that instead. So the exit date, when we're exiting someone from the program, we're going to mark that by entering an exit date. This is going to be different depending on your project type. For most case management and services only projects, it's just going to be the last date of the last service you provided to them. And with rapid rehousing, that's obviously going to also entail no longer providing a subsidy for their housing, but if you continue to provide case management after the subsidy, it would be the last date of case management. So we're going to select that pencil to the left of the exit date column. Then we're going to, this pop-up for exit date is going to come up. We're going to select all members of the household who left. It's possible to select just one household member. So if we went into Robert's profile, for example, if we had just him selected and not anyone else, we could just exit him and not all other members of the household. For now, because everyone exited together, we're going to exit them all at the same time. So make sure, again, you have the exit date selected as the last date of service that was provided to this client. Reason for leaving is going to be from this list of reasons someone left. If they completed the program, that's going to be completed program. If there was another reason that they left, you're going to select that here. The reason for leaving is not going to show up on your HUD reports, but it is useful to communicate to other programs why someone left the program. Destination is going to show up on your HUD reports. So it is important, very important, to select the appropriate destination that someone went to. So I'm going to explain a bit about what each of these mean, because there's sometimes some confusion about which housing situation corresponds to these options. Homeless situations. So we obviously don't want to exit people to homeless situations, but unfortunately sometimes it does happen. Place not meant for habitation and emergency shelter should be pretty straightforward. Safe haven is something you should never select. That's a type of housing that we do not have in our continuum of care. So if they do exit to homelessness, it should just be place not meant for human habitation or emergency shelter. Institutional situations. These, again, should be pretty self-explanatory. Foster care, hospital or other residential medical facility, jail or prison, long-term care facilities are all included in institutional situations. Temporary and permanent housing situations, these are other situations that someone might end up in. So it's important to note that if someone goes to live with family or friends, you do have to select whether it's expected to be temporary tenure or permanent tenure. So if you have a conversation with the client or with that family or friend that they're going to stay with, then having some expectation of whether they're going to be there long term or not. And obviously that's going to show up as either a positive destination if it's permanent tenure, or a temporary or negative destination if it's only temporary. This other set of permanent housing destinations is going to depend on their type of subsidy that they receive. So except for, I mean, this is a very specific situation. HOPWA, moving from one HOPWA funded project to another, that's a specific kind of situation. But these other ones are about the type of subsidy they're receiving. So these two are veterans subsidies. GPD-TIP is a grant and per diem program from the Veterans Administration. HUD-VASH is a veterans program. Permanent housing for formerly homeless persons, that refers to the continuum of care permanent supportive housing program. Those are under that category, as well as any other permanent housing that's specifically for people who are formerly homeless. If someone exits to a rapid rehousing project, you would select rental by client with rapid rehousing subsidy. Rental by client with housing choice voucher, this is what you'd select for Section 8. Rental by client in a public housing unit, this is something like a unit in one of the housing authorities. Syracuse Housing Authority, Auburn Housing Authority, North Syracuse Housing Authority, like that. Rental by client no ongoing housing subsidy is if they no longer have any rental assistance from any program and they're paying market rent on their unit. Rental by client with other ongoing housing subsidy, if there's some other program and it doesn't fall into one of these categories, something like project-based Section 8, like some housing developers have in our area, and they don't necessarily fall under these specific categories, that would be other ongoing housing subsidy. And then owned by client with ongoing housing subsidy or no ongoing housing subsidy are also options. And again, those should only be selected if the client actually does own the building. We want to avoid any of the options in other. Obviously, if someone is deceased, then that is appropriate to select. However, it typically is never appropriate to select client doesn't know, client refused, or data not collected. If you did not collect sufficient information when the client left, or if they disappeared and we don't know where they went, then that's the only time. If you've tried several times to get that information and couldn't get it, then you would select no exit interview completed. We're going to select rental by client no ongoing housing subsidy for this person. The other sections here, if you do select other because there isn't something in this exhaustive list of housing options, then you can specify it in other. You should really think 2 or 3 times about whether or not it isn't already selected here. Because it probably does fall into one of those categories. And if you have a question about that, please contact your system administrator to clear that up. Notes, if there is something that you want to communicate to other users in the system that might be reading this is where you can add some notes. Subsidy, you can select if they got some subsidy here, if they went to public housing or Section 8. This also isn't going to be pulled into any of your HUD reports, but it can be useful to note. So once we have this all filled in, we're going to select Save and Continue. And then we're going to fill out the exit assessment. The first question of the exit assessment is this question that was from the intake when we asked the client if they left the program today, where is it likely that they might be? So this is, if they went, if we don't know where they went, they just packed up and left, we haven't seen them in a few days, we would reference what they said here to inform what we're going to put on the exit destination on the previous page. For income, we're going to change the income if they have different income amounts than the last time that we assessed them, either whether that was during their annual assessment or during their update when they moved into their housing unit, or if it was at intake, if we didn't have any of those interim assessments. Then we would change that. I'd recommend checking out our video on updating income sources if you don't know how to do that. You're also going to update non-cash benefits, health insurance, and disabilities on the exit assessment if those have changed since the last time you updated someone's information. And then lastly, at the bottom, we have these 3 fields: housing assessment at exit, subsidy information, and two fields for subsidy information. This is for homelessness prevention projects or eviction prevention projects. These are only for if you're not one of those projects, you don't have to worry about these fields. But if you are homelessness prevention, these have to be completed when someone exits the project. So this is just about, because it's possible to stay in the same unit if if you successfully go through a homelessness prevention project. You'd select that they stayed in the housing unit that they had at project entry, or they moved to a new unit, or they moved in at one of these other destinations. So if they were able to maintain the housing they had at project entry, you'll have to select this other field that says, if able to maintain housing at entry, subsidy information, and then select the type, select whether or not they got a subsidy or not, or if you helped them obtain one of those subsidies, or if you just offered financial assistance other than a subsidy. And a subsidy is ongoing financial assistance for the client to help pay their rent. If you selected for housing assessment at exit, moved to new housing unit, you're going to put something into this field, the if moved to new housing unit subsidy information field. And that's going to state, did they have a subsidy in that new housing unit, or did they not have a subsidy in that new housing unit? So only one of these fields should ever be filled in. You don't need to fill in both, but this housing assessment at exit field is very important to fill in for homelessness prevention or eviction prevention projects. So once you have everything checked on the exit assessment, everything is appropriately filled in, then you will select the you'll hit save and exit, and that'll bring you back to the entry exit page, and your client is now successfully exited from your program. Thank you.